As you complete your workouts, you might notice that not all my tutorials include the name of the piece of equipment I'm using. For example, in the tutorial for the Suitcase alternating forward lunge, I'm holding 2 dumbbells, but nowhere in the name do you see those words. As for my goblet deadlifts, I'm using a kettlebell, but I also do not mention this. The reason is simple. Whether you're using a dumbbell, kettlebell, or book bag, the positioning of the weight is the same and the majority of the exercise is unaltered. The only difference between the tools you use is the difficulty of the grip when holding the weight and how much the weight is shifting when you're performing the exercise. A book bag with heavy weight will be held differently than a kettlebell, and depending on what load we use, the weight itself may shift in the bag during the exercise. We should be cautious of these factors and acknowledge them, but the movement remains the same. Certain exercises, such as the barbell deadlift versus the goblet deadlift, may have a single weight, but the weight interacts with our center of gravity or body differently. This is why most barbell exercises will have their own variations. As we move on to specialty tools and equipment, such as the hex bar or safety bar, they too will have their own tutorials. But the key takeaway is that you shouldn't feel limited or forced to use a particular piece of equipment when viewing my tutorials. Don't have 2 dumbbells for the dual arm deadlift? Simply use 2 kettlebells or even 2 bags. Use whatever you have access to, especially if you have a home gym and limited equipment. Learning to adapt the exercise to your unique set of available equipment is vital for our success. As I hinted with the barbell, how the equipment affects our center of gravity will determine how we lift the weight and perform the exercise. An easy example to demonstrate this is all the variations of the squat: barbell front squat, the high bar back squat, and the low bar back squat. This is to name only a few. When you look at an individual performing these variations of the squat from the side view, you should notice that the torso's positioning is completely different from one squat variation to another. But if you pay attention, the bar is as close as it can be to being over the ankles, specifically over the center of gravity. So different placements of the load on the body can drastically alter how we perform the exercise according to our center of gravity. Now let's look at the Suitcase reverse lunge and the dual rack reverse lunge. Aside from relying on grip strength on the Suitcase versus the shoulders on the dual rack variation, imagine if you're leaning forward excessively as you lunge backwards. In the dual rack variation, it would be much more difficult to hold the weight and it could possibly even fall forward. The Suitcase variation, on the other hand, allows a greater hip hinge range. In other words, you can lean forward a lot more during the Suitcase variation. So the key takeaways: 1. Use whatever equipment you have that closely resembles the exercise. 2. If you're uncomfortable holding the weight in the exercise in a specific way, there are always variations we can perform, but it's important to talk and discuss the trade-offs. Sometimes it isn't crucial in our program development, and altering from one variation to another is okay. But depending on our goal, it may be a good idea just to go lighter with a variation to become more comfortable with it, than switching and going heavier. This is particularly true with the barbell front squat. Depending on our goal, learning this movement may unlock numerous other exercises that are great for achievement of your goal.